government says it won't speak out against Uganda's new anti-gay law. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni signed that controversial bill yesterday.
It allows courts to sentence people who are found guilty of homosexual acts to life in prison. Anyone who fails to report someone for breaking the new law can also be charged. The move has drawn widespread criticism from around the world.
But Home Affairs Minister Naledi Pandor says that government will not comment on other countries' legislation, although its position on gay rights is clear.
We don't comment on other countries' legislation, we comment on our legislation. The position of South Africa as to sexual orientation and the rights of equality are very clear, both in our Bill of Rights and the legislation that has been passed in this country. So our position is absolutely clear, and it's not changed by any policy adopted by any country.
Let's talk more about this. In our Durban studio is author and gay activist Trevor Kleinhans. Trevor, good afternoon to you. Another African country now signing anti-gay laws. What's your take on it?
Yes. Hi, good afternoon. Oh, I'm disgusted, and it's so upsetting. It took me back many, many years to my years when I was in my early 20s, when homosexuality was illegal in this country, and you had to be closeted and you had to hide, and I myself back then was arrested twice for being gay, and I feel just so desperately sorry for these people, and more needs to be done. More action needs to be taken by countries against countries like Uganda, Russia, India, that are imposing these terrible sentences against people for loving each other.
Trevor, I'm going to read you part of government's statement. First, government said it will not be responding, and then it released a statement to say that through existing diplomatic channels, it will be seeking clarification on developments from many capitals around the world. What do you suppose that means?
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's so airy-fairy, because, where we got to in this country today is because people actively got involved, other countries actively got involved. They didn't sit on the sidelines and say, we've got our policies, we sorted it out, so now we don't have to get involved in another country's internal affairs. We got to where we are today because other countries stood up and said, what you're doing is wrong. They didn't just accept it and say, well, we sorted, so you can sit back and watch. Countries need to now, really look at this and say, whether back in those days you were discriminated against for being black. Now you're being discriminated against because of your sexuality. And countries need to, like even this country, they need to stand up and actually, voice their opinion about it and make a stance.
Why do you think government is backpedaling, Trevor?
If you think of it over so many times, our government doesn't actually make a stance on anything with regards to other African countries, not just this issue. It's almost like they're too afraid to voice their opinion because they're going to tread on somebody else's toes that they went to university perhaps with many, many years ago, when they were in exile. So there's almost this generation of clicking together and sticking together and not upsetting the apple cart. And it's time people actually really stood up and fought this case.
What kind of international intervention do you think is going to be, as punitive measures applied to Uganda?
Well, I mean, there's at the end of the day, you sort of think to yourself, well, what will sanctions do? I mean, that's the end. What will withdrawing all the aid, America being one of the biggest contributors in aid to Uganda, what will it do? Yes, it'll make the rest of the population suffer at the end of the day. But a lot of the time, if why Uganda or governments do this as well is it takes the focus. This is an easy target for them to take the focus off other internal affairs that they have problems with, such as corruption, which is a big thing in Uganda, as well as service delivery items. So it takes the focus off that. And, perhaps some of the aid needs to start, and the countries need to start withdrawing the aid, to start showing them that the world is serious about this.
Is Uganda perhaps imagining that they're going to arrest, every gay person in the country, everybody who's a tattletale, every family member? To what end?
Yeah, of course it is going. It will affect everyone. But then, everyone also has to, in the country, the citizens need to stand up and say that this is not acceptable. But we've even got it. We've even got it in this country. Yes, we've got one of the most liberal constitutions in the world, and our hero Nelson Mandela fought for gay rights for us and got us to where we are today. Now, that's all fine if you're a city gay citizen of the country. But out there in rural South Africa and in the townships, you are still persecuted if you are gay. So, as much as we are liberated as far as gay rights go, we are also still very, 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 as far as educating people, we're quite far backward. And a lot of education needs to be done, not just here, but definitely the rest of Africa.
Trevor, we still have our problems, like you pointed out, here in South Africa, but what lessons can Ugandans take from South Africa, for example, in maybe changing this law, maybe, calling for a retraction of this law?
Yeah, I think what they need to do is, the organizations and the gay organizations people need to give them support, the Ugandan organizations there, and stand by them and give them support to fight this also through perhaps, I wouldn't say the back door, but in another way where you start educating, the likes of the government on that this isn't a disease, it's not something we choose, It's born in us. We are born this way, and a lot of them don't accept that. So I think educating the masses as well as the governments of these countries will definitely help a lot.
Well, fingers crossed, change can be made. Trevor Kleinhans there, he's a gay activist and author, talking to us about the new law in Uganda.